against the pressure. Ooh, yeah. Battering down the pressure. Oh, yeah.
Morning, I know what you're conniving. Morning, neighbor, morning, neighbor, morning.
Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, morning, neighbor,
Morning, neighbor, morning, neighbor, morning, I know what you're conniving. Conniving morning, when you've been up for a bum, in a bill tell me morning. Now because your money done, you come with conniving morning. When you had your pocket full, in a bill tell me morning. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me morning.
yes, morning, neighbor,
Morning, neighbor, morning, neighbor, morning, I know what you're conniving morning. Neighbor, joker, neighbor, joker, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that me walk for.
I said morning, neighbor,
Neighbor, morning, I know what you're conniving morning.
oh, Joseph.
Do you know what it means to have a revolution? And what it takes to make a solution? Fighting against the pressure. Ooh, yeah. Battering down the pressure. Oh, yeah. Are you ready to stand up and fight the right revolution? Are you ready to stand up and fight it just like soldiers? Many are called, few are chosen. Many are called, few are chosen. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah. Gotta fight the right fight in this time, yeah. live on forever. And love one another. Oh, yeah. Living and loving and sharing, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Welcome to Africa at the United Nations.
Back in 2017, when I made my first appearance at the General Assembly as the newly elected president of Ghana, I said neither Ghana nor Africa wanted to be scars on anybody's conscience. I said we want to build economies that are not dependent on charity and handouts, because long and bitter experiences have taught us that no matter how generous the charity, we would remain poor. 1 year on, although infection rates and deaths are relatively lower in the region, the virus's impact on economies and livelihoods has been damaging. The pandemic has also shown us that the great advances in science and technology notwithstanding, we still have a lot to learn and discover about the human body and about life. Thus far, in spite of the grisly predictions of dead bodies littering the streets of Africa, and in spite of not having as much access to vaccine as the developed world, Africa seems mercifully to have escaped the worst of the COVID death rates. And for that, we thank God. One unfortunate development appears to be the recent measures on entry into some countries in Europe, which suggests that Covishield, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine manufactured in India, is not recognized by these countries. What is intriguing is the fact that this vaccine was donated to African countries through the COVAX facility. The use of vaccines as a tool for immigration control will be a truly retrogressive step. Even before the pandemic outbreak, many had concluded that the current structure of global economic cooperation, designed some 77 years ago, has proven inadequate to finance infrastructure and economic transformation in developing countries. Given the incapacity of the global financial system to produce the necessary outcomes to finance sustainable development, we need a constructive review. COVID-19 provides a great chance to rethink global economic cooperation based on the principles of mutuality, equity, sustainability, and collective prosperity envisaged by the SDGs. There is no question but that if the famous gathering in San Francisco was to take place today, it would be a significantly different United Nations Charter that would be written. In much the same way, a World Bank or IMF or WHO that is born today would be radically different institutions from those that were set up after the World War, as many of the countries in today's world, especially in Africa and the Caribbean, were not present in San Francisco. African governments have already spent scarce reserves fighting the pandemic and providing social protection to millions of affected households. Ghana has been advocating that innovative financing must also address structural challenges beyond responding to immediate fiscal needs by providing mechanisms to facilitate investments in health infrastructure, technology, the environment, and people that would bolster resilience and equitable recovery. The IMF's unprecedented $650 billion United States SDR allocation offers a unique opportunity to provide additional financial resources to address the vast and surging inequities the pandemic has revealed and a crisis to come. Africa's allocation is some 33 billion United States dollars. If ever there was a time for an African Marshall Plan, it is now. The SDR infusion should be seized upon as a catalytic effort to leapfrog Africa to the next level of human development and ensure sustained global prosperity. African leaders have advocated for a prudent and transparent channeling of 25 to 35% of SDRs, that is $160 to $230 billion from wealthier to vulnerable countries, $100 billion of which should be dedicated to Africa. We welcome the support of the European countries represented at the Africa Summit in France, the IMF, the G7 and G20 to some SDR redistribution. Mr. President, proceeds of channeled SDR should fund vaccine acquisition and manufacturing, climate and green investments, and a Pan-African stability mechanism, like the European Stability Mechanism, that will safeguard financial stability on the continent. A part of the redistribution should also help fund the recapitalization of the African Development Bank and Afri-Exim Bank to support industrialization, private sector job creation, and the African Continental Free Trade Initiative. Thirdly, we must reposition key multilateral organizations and international financial institutions such as the United Nations, the other Bretton Woods institutions, and the G20 to reflect inclusiveness, support country investments in global public goods, and ensure fast-track financial support to build back better and prepare for future pandemics. For instance, the key to the G20's effectiveness is that it achieves representative coverage of the global population and economy with a diversified enough number of leaders at the table to enable speed and flexibility in deliberation and decision-making. Admitting the African Union to an expanded G21 would have the same galvanizing effect within Africa that the EU's participation in the G20 has within Europe, strengthening policy coordination and coherence across the 54 African economies. With the African Union at the table, the group suddenly would have representation for 54 more countries, 1.3 billion more people, and 2.3 trillion more output. This extraordinary increase in representation will add just one seat to the table and about 10 minutes to the discussion. However, it will redefine global policy coordination to enable a more prosperous, inclusive, and sustainable world to emerge. I thank you for your attention.
Did you like this speech? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Visit our YouTube channel Tunacheki to watch our daily news reports and our website tunacheki.tv for all our latest news updates. You can directly support this new series by becoming a YouTube member or becoming a Patreon. And remember, Africa is watching.
Chances of rising again seems hollow. Doubts may be in your mind. Oh, give it time, and all will be fine. Today you're down. Comes tomorrow. Chances of rising again seems hollow. Doubts may be in your mind. Oh. time, and all will be fine. See, you cannot make it, but you can. Though the roads may be winding and long, our feet might get weary, but not our minds. We will find light in the darkest of time. And we are tomorrow's keepers. Wake up now, bright nation of thinkers, mighty triumphant fearless, be a beacon of all. Today you're down, comes tomorrow. Chances of rising again seems hollow. Doubts may be in your mind. Oh, give it time, and all will be fine. Today you're down, comes tomorrow. Chances of rising again seems hollow. Doubts may be in your mind. Oh, give it time, and all will be fine. As the river swells its banks, the sea needs the sand. We should all hold hands, help our fellow man. Let voices be heard. Love is the word. Cast anger away. It's a whole brand new day. And we are tomorrow's keepers. Wake up now, bright nation of thinkers, mighty triumphant fearless, be a beacon of all. We are tomorrow's keepers. Wake up now, bright nation of thinkers, mighty triumphant fearless, be a beacon of chances of rising again seems hollow. Doubts may be in your mind. Oh, give it time, and all will be fine. Today you're down, comes tomorrow. Chances of rising again seems hollow. Doubts may be in your mind. Oh, give it time, and all will be fine. All will be fine, and all will be fine. done so much for me, I cannot tell it all. If I had 10,000 tongues, it still wouldn't be enough. Tuku nakwama really. When you hear completely. Chuku my robe and more. If he can you let we sing What shall I render to Jehovah? For he has done so very much for me. Come on, everybody. What shall I render to Jehovah? Hey! For he has done so very much for me. Nara, 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 eh. Nare, kele, nare, kele, mo. We sing nara, 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 eh. Nare, kele, nare, kele, mo. Nare, kele, nara, nara, kele, nare, kele, What shall I render to Jehovah? For he has done. What shall I render to Jehovah? Lift your hands. One more time. Jungle Church. Hey. Lift your hands. You alone deserve the glory, Jesus. You alone deserve the praise. For the last time, what shall I render? Come on, let him know. Jehovah, for he has done so very. For he has done so very much. He's done so much for you. What shall I render to Jehovah? To Jehovah. Come on, everybody declare. For he has done so very much for me.
Hi, I'm Femi OK. Welcome to the stream. Today we're talking about slavery reparations, former colonizers, and what potentially the payment of reparations could do in terms of institutional racism and racism around the world. Have a look here at my laptop, just a reminder about the transatlantic slave trade. This is a timeline from the transatlantic slave trade database. Those slave ships that you see crossing from the African continent and back through to the Caribbean and North America, they are Portuguese and British and French and Spanish from the Netherlands, from America. Gives you an idea of the height of the transatlantic slave trade and what it meant. An estimate of between 12.5 million people and maybe up to 20 million people from the African continent were enslaved. So 2 questions that always come up when slavery reparations are talked about. 1, nothing to do with me, nothing to do with my government. I wasn't around at the time. I'm not responsible. And 2, it was a long time ago. What other questions would you like to put to our guests? The comment section is right here on YouTube. You can be part of today's discussion.
Whenever politicians discuss the impact of MacArthur, that is slavery and colonisation, there's a habit for them to discuss it in terms of the past, as if it was a one-time event that occurred centuries ago, and if justice is just a compensation check. But MacArthur is the reason why African people around the world live without the protection of human rights. So reparations for MacArthur must be holistic, and they must address Afrophobia. That is the global dehumanization of African people and people of African heritage all over the world. Reparations for MacArthur must be centered around justice, and they must create committed agents for change who will dismantle the systemic and institutional policies that are a legacy of what was the most monstrous crime against humanity.
Joining us to talk about slavery reparations, we have Vereen, Esther, Nkechi. Ladies, it's so good to have you with us. Vereen, welcome to the stream. Introduce yourself to our global audience.
Thank you very much. My name is Vereen Shepherd. I am a social historian and the director of the Center for Reparation Research at the University of the West Indies here in the Caribbean, and I'm one of the vice chairs of the United Nations Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination.
Good to have you. Hello, Esther. Introduce yourself to our stream viewers.
Hi, greetings. My name is Esther Stanford Kosei, and I am a jurisconsult, which is a specialist in jurisprudence, the science and philosophy of law. I'm also the coordinator general of the Stop the Maangamizi We Charge Genocide Ecocide campaign. And Maangamizi is a Kiswahili word for African Holocaust.
Esther, so good to have you. We'll talk to you more in just a moment, but first I have to greet Nkechi. Nkechi, welcome to the stream. Introduce yourself to our global audience.
Greetings, Femi. My name is Nkechi Taifa. I'm an attorney, I'm an activist, I'm an advocate, and I am an author. I'm a founding member of NCOBRA, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, and I'm an inaugural commissioner on the National African American Reparations Commission.
So let's start with the United Nations. This is the Human Rights Chief, Michelle Bachelet, on July the 12th, making a deep connection between enslaved people and reparations and what reparations actually means.
There is an urgent need to confront the legacies of enslavement, the transatlantic slave trade, colonialism, and successive racially discriminatory policies and systems, and to seek reparatory justice. Despite some initiatives towards truth-seeking and limited forms of reparation, including memorialization, acknowledgements, apologies, and litigation, our research could not find a single example of a state that has comprehensively reckoned with the past or accounted for its impacts on the lives of people of African descent today.
Yes, I just played a timeline. It wasn't even the entire timeline of the transatlantic slave trade, but from, let's say, 1500, so the 16th century, right up until the 19th century, people were trafficked, Africans were trafficked. And then there's this sense of nervousness about putting a price on that. How do you do that? Because that's what reparations is doing, isn't it? Nkechi, you start.
Plus, it's much more than that as well. It's not just compensation for the enslavement era, for the ma'afa of the Holocaust of the transatlantic slave trade, but at least with respect to the United States, for everything that's happened since then, the enslavement era, the black codes, the peonage system, the chain gangs, the sharecropping, the Homestead Act, not being able to get the benefits of that, or the GI Bill, the redlining, the Jim Crow apartheid, the mass incarceration, all of these things combined, the black-white economic wealth gap, the health disparities, the educational inequities, the criminal punishment system. So it is compensation for all of that combined. And I will say this, no amount of financial compensation can at all compensate for everything that African people worldwide throughout the diaspora has gone through. So it will be the situation of a negotiated settlement. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about compensation that is going to fully, completely, and totally atone for everything that has happened. But it will be a step towards that necessary healing that we need.
Esther, continue.
Yeah, for me, I take the position from international human rights law and international humanitarian law that make it very clear that a comprehensive reparations strategy or program or settlement has to include multifaceted remedies, including remedies of restitution. Of course, compensation has been mentioned, rehabilitation, measures of satisfaction, what's called symbolic reparations. And for me, most importantly, which is actually underemphasized in the discourse on African reparations, is guarantees of non-repetition. How do we ensure that what has happened to us and continues to happen does not ever happen again?
You know, Esther, people will be doing a double take. It'll be like, of course, enslaved people, that couldn't happen again. What would the guarantee be that you would need?
Well, it's not just about enslavement. Actually, the crimes of the Ma'angamizi continue to this day. We're talking about racism as a direct legacy, anti-black racism and its specific form, known as Afrophobia, which Toyin spoke to. And actually, we're talking about colonization, neo-colonialism. So there's a whole range of violations and dispossessions and displacements of African people around the world which require repair. So restitution could mean any number of things, including the right to restoration of our own group rights, our own individual human rights, the right to a nationality, the right to a homeland, as opposed to being referred to as an ethnic minority.
I'm just looking here at my laptop here, Vereen, a headline that caught the world's attention. Jamaica plans to seek reparations from Britain over slavery. And then Ron says underneath that story, posting this for us, go get it. It won't change the past, but it could positively affect the future. Ron gets it. Vereen.
Ron gets it, and many people get it. Our panelists get it, and I'm sure lots of your listeners and your viewers get it. But can I just say that this is not new. Jamaica has been on this path to seek reparatory justice for a long time. I think now that we are a part of a global movement, it is appearing as if this is something new. But remember, when we talk about reparation and the fight for freedom and liberation and rights, we have to talk about from the very moment of conquest, colonization, enslavement, the trafficking in our ancestors, the post-colonial harm, the cashless emancipation. All of these things have this movement has a long genealogy. And so it's a continuous movement towards a settlement, which has not yet happened. So Jamaica, in fact, in 2009, formed the National Commission on Reparation. It's called the Council now. And CARICOM, even though there's an intensification of the movement, because the more people say, no, we're not going to talk to you, the more we're insisting, yes, you must talk to us, and you must do what my colleagues have said you're to do. Apologize, which has 3 dimensions. You accept responsibility, you commit to non-repetition, and you commit to repair. And we're waiting on all of those.
And actually, I want to just hop in for a moment if I can, because I want to agree 100% with my sister, Vereen. Reparations is not new. In the United States, the concept did not drop from the sky with Ta-Nehisi Coates' article in the Atlantic magazine, The Case for Reparations, or even recently with Nicole Hannah-Jones and her 1619 project that talked about reparations in the New York Times. Reparations is a long-standing issue of international law, which the United States has actually participated in from the time of the end of the enslavement period. Reparations were in fact paid in the United States. They just weren't paid to black folk. They were paid to the former slave owners for the loss of the so-called,
Yes,
property.
I want to jump in on that because you're absolutely right. So that's what I'm saying. It's been going on for a very long time. We're just naming it different things now. But it's okay if people come to the movement at different times. It's okay. We welcome everybody. It's a big tent. All are welcome, and all has all people have a place. But yes, those who were paid were not our people, and therefore we are pressing for compensation, but as a part of a development plan in the case of the Caribbean.
So I guess I have a question to ask, and I'm going to ask this question via Pamela Denise Long. My question is that often in this reparations debate that has been going on for a very, very long time, as you point out, Vereen, that it seems easier for people of colour, for black people, to see why reparations are necessary. Not just money, but an entire plan, of reparations. And it seems very difficult for people who aren't black to see this. And I'm curious as to why. Here is Pamela's, she just does a whole list of why it's important, why reparations are important. Have a listen, have a look.
The United States must pay reparations for chattel slavery to Black American descendants of U.S. slaves due to outright neglect and harmful policies like redlining and mass incarceration, including Biden's law. Black Americans have 1/10 the wealth of white Americans. As a descendant of slavery and parent to an 8th-generation Black American, a just reparations plan for us includes cash payments for 400+ years of stolen labor and racial trauma experienced by me, my child, and our ancestors.
So, Esther, as I predicted, I'm getting the questions that I mentioned that I was expecting at the top of the show. Ethos, we are talking many years ago, though. Peggy, we should not have to pay for something we had nothing to do with. Why is it difficult for people who aren't black to see that reparations has a place in 2021? Esther?
I think some people who are not of African ancestry have a problem with it. There are many so-called white people and other, Asian people and others who do get reparations, certainly in the work that I'm doing in Europe. One of the difficulties is, it's already been mentioned, this dehumanization of people of African ancestry continues. It has been made systemic, so in terms of legal systems, the education system, which often miseducates and doesn't teach the truth about our history, even prior to enslavement, because our history didn't begin with enslavement. And there is a lack of recognition of how the world that has been created today, including all its inequality, is as a result of this history that we are all speaking about. And in the UK, it's actually not history, because it was only in 2015 that the loan that was taken out by the British government to pay enslavers in 1835 was finally repaid. So that means every generation, including of people of African diaspora, including African Caribbean heritage, has also had to pay back by way of, extortion of taxes. So this is a modern day thing, and it is unjust. And I don't see why it's so difficult to recognize the inequality, the injustice that is meted out to African people, but yet we are expected to recognize the Jewish Holocaust, the dispossession and lack of sovereignty of indigenous peoples, which we do. But then we are also human beings too, and we must assert our right to be recognized as such, and also our right to a remedy and to repair. And that repair must be full and holistic.
So let's talk about repair, reparations. How do they work? There have been some examples. Institutions, organizations are doing their own reparations. They're saying, yes, we were complicit. We understood that we benefited from the slave trade for chattel slavery, and this is what we're doing in order to repair that damage. Nikichi, give us some examples from the United States. Do you have any?
So let me just say this first. The harms from the enslavement era and beyond were multifaceted. Thus, the remedies must be multifaceted as well. Just recently, there is a jurisdiction in the United States called Evanston, Illinois. They used a very creative way of atoning for the past. They used tax revenue from their legal cannabis industry to fund reparations projects in that city. Issues that stem from the enslavement era, specifically with respect to housing discrimination and what we call redlining. That was very creative, shall I say. There's Georgetown University. The reason why Georgetown University stands today is because of the sale by the Jesuits who owned Georgetown University of over 272 Black men, women, and children and babies. Okay, to keep Georgetown from going into bankruptcy. They've just called for I'm not even sure if it was million or billion, but of monies to set aside to begin to atone for that act. But basically, it is the federal government, with the bill that is on the table today, H.R. 40, the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act, which is the piece of the resistance, shall we say. It is the end to everything. You have the federal government, you have the state government, local governments, academic and religious institutions and industries and corporations and private estates, but the role that the federal government played and their the situation that they must remedy, they must apologize, they must compensate, they must allow for that satisfaction. That is what must be paramount at this time.
Vereen, let me share this with you. This is from the Kingdom of Kush. We told the Kingdom of Kush we were doing this program, so have a look here. Reparations should be paid. The Vatican and the Church of England owe an apology to the return of stolen artifacts as well from the country of origin. The indigenous Native American tribes are owed an apology and reparation. So many apologies out there that should be made. Yes. What importance is an apology? Is that the starting point? Well, do you have to get a sorry first?
It would be nice to get a sorry first. And that's how I started, by talking about the different dimensions of an apology. But we can't get stuck. If the apology doesn't come, we wait on it and we don't do anything else. But I want to just reinforce the point that my colleagues, my sisters have made, that this is not too long in the past at all. If something was done in the past, it was settled and so on, then you could even begin to think like that. But this is a continuing harm. We are talking about stolen artifacts, looted artifacts which have not been returned. I know some people are talking about returning that now, some universities and museums. We're talking about psychological damage. We're talking about the health crisis. We're into the pandemic now, and we are seeing the effects of the lack of social infrastructure in places whose wealth was extracted to ensure that places like Britain became rich. We are talking about the legacies with which we are living, and we are saying that the debt has not been paid, the accounts have not been settled, and therefore we have to carry on.
All right, Vereen, so I'm not debating with you, but what I am wondering about is you cannot have this dialogue alone. It can't be you, Nikichi, Esther, the community of people who believe in reparations. What about the former colonizers? The Caribbean states have written to European former colonizers. Sometimes they reply to you, sometimes they don't. They do not want to have anything to do with reparations. How do you move forward? What do you do?
That's why we have to do what we're all doing in the movement globally. We are saying we are going to keep up the work public education, because one way to get people to move is to ensure your populations are with you. And therefore, public education is quite important. And we are also saying, if everyone who has been colonized, if you're living in a colonized state, you must look around you and see the impact of what Europeans did. Therefore, you do have doubters within our space as well. But we are trying to mobilize so many people,
There are some Caribbean politicians who do not believe that reparations will ever be paid. They just don't believe it.
Well,
I think they are working towards it, though. You do have a CARICOM reparation commission. You have a prime ministerial subcommittee, and everyone is working. You have individual politicians who are themselves making some inroads. For example, Antigua Barbuda, Prime Minister Brown is making inroads in terms of Harvard and Oxford. So there are multiple tracks, is what I'm saying. Haiti is asking for restitution. This is what France did to stymie the development of this country that has been such a beacon in terms of revolution and the struggle for rights. So we can't drop, even if we get weary. I always say, emancipation, quote unquote, the end of African enslavement, the Manganese, it took centuries. Our ancestors didn't even know when they were fighting and getting hanged and burned and everything that it would end. They kept on. Our generation has a responsibility to take the torch and carry on, even if it looks difficult.
I'm just going to put this very
agitate.
Nikita, let me just put this to you. This is from Scott Carney, just so you can debate, because you can't debate amongst yourself because you all agree. Scott Carney says, I don't think they're pay the former colonizers. Financial compensation for historical abuses seems unlikely. Nikita, go ahead, pick up.
Yeah, no, I just want to say we need to agitate, educate, and organize. The global movement, we're in a global movement right now. It is because of CARICOM. Because of what CARICOM did, it inspired us in the United States when our reparations movement was at a low. It inspired us in 2015 to form the National African American Reparations Commission, modeled off of the CARICOM model. And it really created an upsurge. What happened just recently with Michelle Bachelet and the UN High Commissioner and the like, what it did was it caused the U.S. Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, to issue an invitation, a formal invitation for the UN Special Rapporteur on contemporary forms of racial U.S. racism to come to the United States. So what happens in one area has an impact on what's happening in other areas as well. So it's part of this global movement. Unfortunately, we are near the end, believe it or not, of the decade of U.S. decade of people of African descent.
That went so fast. I remember the beginning of that decade. Where did that decade go?
We're halfway.
Yikes.
Not finished yet.
Yikes. All right, guys, let me just play in one more comment. This is from Professor Darity. He makes a very convincing argument for reparations. He also mentions something called redlining, which our audiences outside of the US, all you need to know is it's about housing discrimination applied often to people of colour. Here is his, as far as I'm concerned, very convincing argument. Have a listen, have a look.
The case for reparations for Black American descendants of U.S. slavery extends well beyond the atrocity of enslavement. In particular, one has to take into account the nearly century-long period of legal segregation in the United States, coupled with upwards of 100 massacres that took place from the end of the Civil War into the 1940s that resulted in massive loss of Black lives, but also the seizure and appropriation of Black property by the white terrorists. And then in the post-civil rights period, we still have ongoing atrocities, including mass incarceration, police executions of unarmed Blacks, and sustained discrimination in housing, credit, and employment markets.
I am going to say, Nikichi, Vereen, and Esther, you are fired up. Thank you so much for being on the stream today. I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.
Oh Lord. I was buried alive, but I'm still breathing. I don't know what tomorrow may bring, but I got a feeling. I am alive. There must be a reason. I was given one more chance. My heart's still beating. Buried alive, but I'm still breathing. I don't know what tomorrow may bring, but I got a feeling. Oh, now I am alive. There must be a reason. I was given one more chance. My heart's still beating. Now all this time I've been blind, only running against the wind. Friends of mine pass with time after living a life of sin. Some many give up, many give in. It's my determination to win. I survived the worst of times. I survived, yeah. I was buried alive, but I'm still breathing. I don't know what tomorrow may bring, but I got a feeling. Alright, now I am alive. There must be a reason. I was given one more chance. My heart's still beating. Oh, they made a ditch for one, but there would be two. In their attempt to hold my life, the wicked things they do. But Jah made I brave, and I conquered the grave. Oh yeah, the Lord is my salvation. Of whom shall I fear? I was buried alive, but I'm still breathing. I don't know what tomorrow may bring, but I got a feeling. Alright, now I am alive. There must be a reason. I was given one more chance. My heart's still beating. One more time. I said buried alive, but I'm still breathing. I don't know what tomorrow may bring, but I got a feeling. Alright, I am alive. There must be a reason. I was given one more chance. My heart's still beating. My heart's still beating. My heart's still beating. My heart's still beating.
Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money never, money never, money, money never, money, money. Now know what you can even money, money never, money never, money, money never, money, money. You can keep your conniving money when you've been a corrupt. In a bill tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. Then you had your pocket full. In a bill tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money never, money never, money, money never, money, money. Now know what you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker.
This all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This all the money that me walk for.
I said money, neighbor,
Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, I don't want you conniving money.
oh Joseph.
Morning. I don't want the conniving morning. Oh, Joseph, poor me. Good morning. Welcome to another program of Buxtonian Morning Time. It's now 7 hours 11 on the 23rd day of September in the year 2021. It's the morning after we came to realize that we have an installed dunce in the office of the president who is incapable of pronouncing such words as reparative or reparative, reparation, commemorative. Come on. Y'all need to get this guy hooked on phonics. Hooked on phonics. Somebody needs to teach him syllables. Oladoy. You see the thing with the Dunsin ministers and the Dunsin government and the Dunces president this country has ever seen is that they pay light attention, they pay scant regard to educators, and they pay scant regard to the work that educators do. And so when many of them were supposed to be in school learning how to break words into syllables, even if they're words you've come across for the first time, they've been pelting school. They've been on the school bottom house. They've been forging certificates. They've been engaging in everything that will result in their ignorance. And so don't be surprised you got a wild hog as a minister of education, and you got a dunce masquerading as president. Right? You know what is one of the shameful things? Not only is this man a dunce, but he is a dunce wielding power over a nation of people whose ancestors have sacrificed tremendously to build this land. And then to go to the UN and speak on an issue that concerns those very people, black people in this country, and cannot even pronounce words associated with that black cause. And you had a black Uncle Tom sitting in the midst of them. You Todd, shameful. Alalio, shameful. You know you got a dunce president. The thing that dunce people used to do when I was in school is cram. Even if somebody write it for them, they cram it. You all should have had that dunce, the fat guy, reciting and reciting and reciting and reciting. Learn by repetition. Repetition. That is what you all should have had him doing. An embarrassment to this once proud nation. This country, which led the region in education at some point in time, now has a president who is worse than a fourth grader. Can't pronounce reparation, commemorative, reparative. Dunce. Shame on you. Shame on Barrett Jagdio. Shame on Sitara Gyal. Shame on Utah. Shame on the entire installed cabal for bringing shame to this once proud nation of ours. Shame! I don't know even what, listen, I've seen the video played so many times, I don't even need to play it. I show you, I'll see it. Right? But you can understand why these people have no respect for educators and education and the processes involved in education, because they themselves are dunces. Right? They say if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. And so these clowns, led by the fat guy, believe that education is expensive. They don't want to spend on smart classrooms. They don't want to spend on bandwidth availability for learners and teachers. They don't want to spend on upgrading facilities so people can teach virtually. They don't want to spend on outfitting schools and teachers so that they can deliver virtual education, because they are in themselves ignorant. And so they go on the world stage and they put their ignorance on show. If the fat guy was representing the allies or the PPP, I didn't care three hang about it, because we know already that them is a set of dunce. But the fat guy has gone on the world stage to represent Guyana, a country of which I'm a proud citizen. And every citizen should take umbrage of this nonsense. Duncing chap. Everything about this man wrong. He dresses poorly. He has poor etiquette. He speaks badly. He can't write, he can't spell, he can't read. There's no question about that. The fat guy didn't write that presentation. I bet my money. He didn't write it. But he couldn't read it also. And we got a nation accepting this tomfoolery. We have teachers who are allowing dunces like these, through their lackeys like Mark Light, bullying them and beating them into subjection to do that which they know is not right. We have had teachers who are following the script of these dunces and putting people's children and teachers in harm's way, because they got COVID-infected teachers in the school and they're keeping it on a down low. Many teachers themselves are COVID-infected and they're keeping it on a down low, because they're following this duncing script from these duncing people. But y'all don't worry yourself. I pray one day Guyanese will wake up. That's all I can pray. I'm an American worker. I can only bring you news and information and analysis. I certainly cannot. I certainly cannot make you do what you're supposed to do as citizens.
Commemoration. Guyana is committed
I can't make you do
international reparations
what you're supposed to do
for the crime of African enslavement.
Right?
Reparative justice
listen, I am so
must not
ashamed
only
of it.
include a full and unconditional
My God, have
apology.
mercy. I bet I know a couple of kindergarten students who will call this word without a fumble.
In today's
I bet that I know a couple of primary and secondary school students, not a couple, a whole lot, who will call these words without fumbling. I guarantee you that there are many without doctors to their names. Well, I don't know. There are many who are not doctors who will call these words without fumble. Y'all listen to y'all dunce talk president. All you listen. This is what Guyana, this can be This is the worst example of what it means to be Guyanese. Y'all listen to this dunce.
In today's commemoration, Guyana is committed to gaining international reparations for the crime of 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 gaining international reparations.
That one might get trouble. Even the software shame of Ali. Even the software finding a difficulty playing this thing. I could imagine now.
In today's commemoration, Guyana is committed to gaining international reparations for the crime of African enslavement. Reparative justice
yeah, listen right
must
there,
not
right there,
only
why
include a full enslavement. Reparative justice must not only include a full and unconditional apology from those responsible and or who benefited from the transatlantic trade in captive Africans and their consequent enslavement must go beyond apology. In this regard, Guyana will continue to support the efforts being made within the Caribbean community to press for the convening of an international summit to demand reparative justice for the victims of the transatlantic slave trade.
Reparative. If that is what he was saying, reparative. Well, let me tell you what y'all need to do him. Thing like that you need to put on a raft and send to sea without a paddle. Put that thing on a raft and send it out to sea without a paddle. Reparative. If that is what he said, because I myself confused. According to my friend here, there's we say, even Google confused. And Google don't get it wrong. I tell you, listen, y'all need to put your head in, I don't know, my goodness. Eh? I really don't know. Guyanese. For less than that, governments have fallen. Why are we still having this dunce as head of state? Why are we still having this corrupt cabal in office? Mr. Jordan, good morning.
Good morning.
I hope you can pronounce the word reparative. That's your password for this morning.
Actually, you know, it's very difficult even trying to pronounce that word in that manner. I tried it myself and started coughing.
You choked on the ignorance of somebody else.
But when you really think seriously, it shows how far we have fallen. You know, I've seen DPI and whoever else putting out announcement how Guyana is being placed on the map. But I mean,
of course,
when you of course, you know that it's foolish sloganeering and propagandizing. But I mean, when you consider speakers like Sorcery that Ramphal, Rashley Jackson, Lyndon Forbes Sampson, Bornham, you know, Noel Sinclair, Rudy Instanali, all these people who had made their names, if not their entrances at the United Nations. The quality of their speaking, the diction, you know, their prose, you know, and everything else. When you consider those are all Guyanese and the kind of track record we would have established at the United Nations through the years, it just shows not about Guyana being put on the map, it's how Guyana's fallen off the map, so to speak, with this last faux pas that has been made. I mean, if there's any lessons to be learned from this, not only from the level of the head of state, but right down to the common entrance student, is that preparation. There's no substitute for it. Most leaders don't write their their speeches that they end up reading at whether it's the United Nations or wherever they go. I don't think most of them have the time to do it. Many of them are however, involved in the writing of their speeches. And there are several drafts before they get to the final speech. So they already have an indication of what the speech has. It clearly shows in this case that that Ali didn't have forewarning about the speech. If he did, then he didn't practice reading it and so forth, So I think it was a real disaster. It's not the first time that disaster has taken place. But
it won't be the last.
I hope it is the last. I hope it is the last. People saying that he was nervous and so on. The first thing is that he wasn't speaking to the United Nations General Assembly. He was speaking to a little closed door thing. As you can see, most of the seats are empty. Most of the seats are empty. So the whole issue about nerves and so forth, I dismiss it. If you had said so when he was speaking to the wider United Nations General Assembly, as in this morning, when he's expected to speak, maybe he will say. But once you keep practicing that, by the time you get up to that podium and so forth and start reading, I don't see what is the nerves. You have to be familiar with the speech. You can't get up there and find out that you're going to read a speech that is not properly punctuated. The intonations and so on that has to come with it and so forth. The rise and fall of your voice as you come to certain important parts of the speech and so on. The other thing too is that what Ali didn't seem to understand, that you're talking about reparative justice of African people. And it had to dawn on him as an Indian person leading a multiracial society that he wasn't an African there talking about reparations for Africans. He was an Indian who was there talking about reparations for Africans. And so there was an added burden on him. There was an added burden on him to get it right. I think a lot of people miss that part.
It shows the scant regard with which this installed cabal treats issues of of importance to the African people of this country. But let me ask you this.
Indeed, because I just want to stay on the point. When you looked at who was part of his delegation in that particular meeting, I dare say no one there was an African. And it's not as if Guyana is not a multiracial society with the second largest component of the population being of Africans.
So you say you thought he's not African, Mike?
Huh?
You thought he's not African?
He is not in the picture. He is not in the picture of that. He is in the delegation to the UN General Assembly, but he's not in the picture there. Did you see his picture there in that small meeting on reparations for Africans?
I'm going to play the video again.
I saw Ali, I saw Jagdu was next to him, and I saw Rodriguez Burkett, who was the ambassador to the United Nations.
If I'm not mistaken, I think his father's right. Like an outcast.
In the picture?
Yes. With his eyes closed in shame. Yes, I'm right. He's behind Jagdio.
Is he behind Jagdio there?
Yes.
I thought the guy who was behind there, I'm not being facetious or anything, but I genuinely thought the guy who was, that particular guy you were talking about, was not part of the delegation. He being so far removed and not properly dressed. Are we talking about the same picture?
Well, I'm looking at a video. I don't know what you have.
Anyway, but I think it didn't. I didn't think it was right. I didn't think it was right, and that and that maybe this just for once in the context of an African something, they should have given that to make the speech or something.
That is what I was about to ask you, Mr. Jordan. If Ali was in his proper place at all, representing an issue as important to black people as reparation.
But that's what I'm saying. I don't know whether this meeting that you had to be the head of state, whether it was a meeting for heads of state and government in the context of speaking about reparations for Africans. I don't know. I doubt whether. But I'm sure an African representative could have gone there and made that speech. I'm saying that you're not talking about India going to the UN and talking about reparations for Africans, and you'll expect an Indian person to be doing that. You're talking about a multiracial country where the second largest component of the population are Africans who came to Guyana as enslaved people. And there you go on to United Nations General Assembly and in the subgrouping that got to do with reparations. And you have Ali, you have Jagdeo, you have Borket, and then you have Todd way off on something, who seems disinterested and so forth, trying to make a plea on behalf of Africans. You know, I don't think if this were something to do with indentured labor, particularly as it relates to Indians, that Indians will have felt, confident that there you have some African going there to talk about indentured laborers, even though Africans did come as indentured laborers, but they would have been very, very, very well short in terms of the minority, But I hope these are lessons that are being learned fairly quickly, because we also hearing now that that Jagdeo is going to Ghana. No, I would love to see who is going with him to Ghana, because in a previous incarnation, that's not the first time Jagdeo is going to Ghana. In a previous incarnation, he went to Ghana, and the delegation that he took to Ghana had left a lot to be desired. In fact, one feedback I remembered back in those days, and I think it was sometime in the 90s, one feedback was people were querying whether Guyana was no longer an African country, because they knew Guyana to be an African country. I'm not saying that they were right, but I mean, in the days when you had Forbes Burnham and the Southern African Liberation Movement and so on, Burnham had a very high profile, and Guyana had a very high profile in that. So they were very familiar with Guyana. So they wanted to know what happened to Guyana. That was part of the feedback that I got. What happened to Guyana? Because Jagdeo had led a delegation to, I think it was an EU, either it was an ACP EU meeting or something at the start, and the delegation left a lot to be desired. These are important constructs, you understand? I mean, if you talk about an African Guyanese delegation to India, and India knowing fully well that Guyana is a multiracial country where the dominant group is Indian. I mean, how you think they will feel? I mean, they wouldn't show it publicly, but I mean, they will tend to feel what is going on here,
And so I think the African, quote unquote, African rights organization of this country have to start making a big furor over this. What has happened to, like I said, the African rights organization? Why can't these people, well, we don't know what the delegation would look like. But one would believe, for example, if you're talking about reparation, I know there are reparation committees in this country. What about partnering with civil society in this instance to ensure that people who are well knowledgeable about this issue accompanies you to such a meeting?
Well, I would have thought that, because Eric Phillips, I think, is the local chairman of the chapter of the Guyana chapter, And I mean, I would have thought that in that particular segment, they would have asked Eric to join them, you know, to join them as part of the delegation, just for that specific part of the program, you know. And Eric has done a lot of work with Sir Hilary Beckles and so forth in trying to push this agenda, you know. I mean, it's the difference between talk which is cheap and talk that will lead to action. And that is what we have in Guyana for too long. Too much talk. Too much talk. You know, it would have been so nice to see Eric as part of that particular delegation for that specific part of the agenda, where he knows the issues inside out, and he could have helped Ali in representing those issues. And it would have been very nice anyhow if they had let Todd be the lead on that particular part of it. You know, but then, you know, many of the people in that particular party are happy with their status, you know, which is virtually nothing. So what can you do about it? But it is important for a lot of the people who claim that they are representative of African interests in Guyana, whether it is the actors and the sage and the whatever else, for them to speak up and speak out. It will be also be interesting to hear what Eric Phillips, as the head of the Reparations Committee local chapter in Guyana, has to say about all of this. You know, whether he was involved, whether he was consulted, and so forth. I mean, we just can't sit back and lay back and hope that it dies. This is a very important point in the history of Africans all over who came as slaves. And we don't want these kinds of faux pas being made so often. We don't want them. You know. So I don't know that anything will come out, because I mean, a number of our African organizations seems to just wait until there's another Freedom Day and stretch your hand out for some handout from the government, and then they all die afterwards. You don't hear anything. You don't hear anything from them for the rest of the year. You know. So I'm not sanguine that something will come out, or you will hear African organizations coming out and say, well, look, we would like to have a bigger say. We would like to have a bigger say. We already know that this is the decade for African recognition of Africans. But what poor Ipadeji, since the coalition has come out of power, you know, their programs and actions and so on have either been scuttled, right, or they don't get the opportunity and resources to be able to promote Africans under the context of the decade, you know. So going to UN and shouting and spewing words about we are behind this and behind, of course, it's anytime free money is going to rear its head, this government definitely got to be behind it. Oh, definitely. You know, but let the reparations come up with something that says national governments should set aside 2% of the GDP, right, for this specific purpose of elevating Africans in society. Let them come up with something like that, and you're gonna see how fast the government gonna be running. You're gonna see how fast they will be running away from such talk.
I'm happy that you made that point, because it's my conclusion that they only fronting this reparation thing because they tell themselves they got a hope of stealing money from black people again. Let me quote from a headline in Village Voice. President tells UN Assembly racism still a tool used in Guyana's politics. Says his government is working to reverse this. Unfortunately, too often in the political arena, ethnic insecurity is real or perceived, and race are used opportunistically to manipulate issues in a manner that promotes tensions and racial feelings. Social media, whilst a powerful tool to inform people, has also been misused. The government of Guyana will continue to work assiduously to eradicate all forms of racism and racial discrimination, and to ensure inclusive development with equal access and sharing Guyana's wealth. Is that a truism in this country?
Man, come on, Kidaki. I mean, you don't expect Ali to go to the UN General Assembly and say we murdering them black people back in Guyana and we taking away the house and so forth. You get the best platitudes as you go to the UN General. You get two kinds of things. One, you get people who call for remedial action and certain things, and then another set who say how we are the greatest nation on earth, and they portray that, so to speak. And so we have that. You don't expect Ali to go to the UN General Assembly and say how 1/3 of our people, the African people, are in poverty and all this kind of thing. No. They have to make it because they have to make it sound that everything is hunky-dory in Guyana.
Is there a mechanism?
They're not going to go there and say that they are the ones who go to the bottom houses and threaten the communities and put the fear of God into the people, into the communities, so that they stay in line, so that they don't leave the flock. They're not going to go and say that. They're not going to put out statistics out there at the UN General Assembly to show who has got all the oil wealth and the oil blocks and everything else and so forth, who got all the shore bases, who got all the contracts even to carry garbage or for taxi, even to pick up people. They're not going to go there and say who have all of those contracts. They're not going to go there and say how the whole procurement laws have been scuttled since the coalition has left. You got all kind of tendering and retendering until the right person gets the job. And how all those Trinidadian contractors have suddenly made an entrance into Guyana who never did a job in Guyana before. They're not going to go there and say that.
The question is there a mechanism by which the opposition, for example, can respond to these statements by providing the facts?
That's right, because at the UN General Assembly provides a forum that got several smaller and so committed. It might have been scuttled by the pandemic and so forth, but it still remains, I believe, the largest gathering annually. And you have hotels that are filled and so forth. You could rent a hotel ballroom or a hotel small room and advertise a workshop, a seminar, a public speaking and so on, where you go and put out your own thing. You're not going to get it in the UN General Assembly, but you could get it on the margins, just outside of the hotel and so forth. You could organize public speaking around where you put out the facts.
And so
you know the opposition knows that Ali and Jagdo and them going to UN General Assembly, and they know once they're there, they're going to organize community meetings and so on. It ain't going to take long to find out where they're organizing these meetings, and therefore you have to organize counter meetings so that you put out there what is happening. They're not going to go to these community meetings and tell them what is going on in Guyana. They're going to tell them exactly what those communities that the organization want to hear. That is them black people back home who create confusion. It's the coalition who don't want to work with the government. They're not going to go out there and say that Ali wants to be recognized by the coalition before he deals with them. So you have to constantly put out your message out there and use all of these avenues. Use all of these avenues to get your message out there. High-ranking people stay in hotels too, and they may be walking the corridors, and smart people know how to get to them. Some of them take a drink in the bar. You have to work, you have to find your ways and means of working, because you're not going to get official meetings with them. And many of them, you're not going to get official meetings, but you have to find your way of working through and working around and all these different things if you really want to get your message across. Because the government is going to have all access to all the different people, high-end people, with considerable ease. You're not going to get that access. But you have to work and worm your way to get whatever little access you could get and have your targeted message ready to send out there. And that's the best you can do. You know, it is not all saying, well, oh, we're not government, oh, we don't have the resources and so on. I keep saying whatever little resource you have to make it work for you.
And so the question I want to ask is, I mean, you may not be aware, but are you aware of any such arrangements being made by the opposition?
Well, I'm not close to the everyday workings of the opposition, so I am not aware. I know I read somewhere where Bork and his crew in United States are working to get certain audiences in Washington and working to get the message out, because they're going to be having community meetings, and Ali and Jack are going to be having community meetings. So I know that only through social media, but I don't know what the opposition is doing. I can't see. But I think one of the things that really had me intrigued is, look, we're in a pandemic here where as of I think yesterday, we have now had 740 deaths, of which 115, I believe, is for September, up to September, I think the 20th, up to September 20th, 115 deaths. Well, that's more than 5 deaths per day, an average of more than 5 deaths per day. And this time, many leaders had opted to stay away from the UN General Assembly. In fact, the chairman of CARICOM, who I believe is Antigua Prime Minister Brown, he sent a pre-recorded message to the UN General Assembly that will be played and then read into the records. But here we are, the country perhaps with the fastest rising per capita deaths and cases, and we find it important to be in United States with a high-level crew, high level in the context of their seniority in the cabinet and so on, a high-level crew in New York. And what do we find? Check pictures of Ali, for example. Sometimes he has on a mask, other times he doesn't have on a mask. He's there shaking hands with the OAS Secretary General. When everybody is saying, notwithstanding the fact that you have a vaccination, you have to observe all the protocols. Distancing, wearing masks, get low on the touching and so forth. We used to do a fist bump and all this kind of thing. Now we're shaking hands and we're hugging and welcome comrade and all this kind of story. I mean, what message does that send to you? I saw Ali in a picture in the CELAC meeting in Mexico, where he and his delegation sitting didn't have on a mask, whereas most of the people around him had on masks. And I'm like, this is really incredible. No wonder we are having this rapid rise in COVID, notwithstanding vaccination and so forth. And this whole vaccination now was taken on a new connotation now, because you have scenario 1. Guyana is now on red alert, a level 4 country, where America is saying, don't come to Guyana unless you absolutely have to come. That's number 1. And if you got to come, make certain that you are vaccinated. You are vaccinated, and all these things. Now, people don't understand is that red alert will make it difficult for Guyanese to travel. Because anywhere we go, that red alert will show up. And we will be treated differently. In some cases, we may be treated as a leper. as a pariah, as we torn up with a Guyana passport seeking to do our business. That is what a red alert will do for you. That is what a red alert does for you. So it is not only the fact that America tell its citizens don't travel to Guyana, it's the fact that also we as citizens of this country traveling to wherever we want, especially United States, will be treated differently. You know, I remember back in the days, when I used to travel, Guyana Airways had a plane that they had got from Russia. Every time that plane landed in United States, they never allowed that plane to go up to the gate. They will have that plane parked out in some strange field, somewhere far away from the airport. And a bus will drive up. After a long time and bus you into the airport. We will all have to go into that bus, and then they will drive you to the airport. And from there, you will walk and go straight to immigration. You were treated like if you were lepers, because the plane was not an American or a Western Europe or whatever manufactured plane. It was a Russian plane. So you get treated like leper when America has all these red alerts and all kinds of different things against you. It's just like, for example, also when they know a BW plane coming in from Guyana, you have all the agents and everything out there waiting for you, because
looking for the thing.
The drugs might be coming on the plane. So you're all there treated like, you're not treated like if the plane came from Britain or Sweden or some sort of thing, where you have a easy plane passage. You are there waiting for them, and then you have the dogs around sniffing and all kinds of story. That is the treatment you get. And so red alert means bad news for Guyana on both fronts. People coming from United States, and not only United States, because as I said, all other countries will now look at that red alert. So people coming from Britain, people from Canada and all these things will be looking at that red alert. And that has an impact on tourism and any other business. So when you hear the knee-jerk or the familiar reaction, well, we're not going to be closing anything as a result, or we're not going to be doing anything. We're not going to be doing anything differently than what we were doing. Can you imagine that is what you are hearing the policymakers saying? Oh, we're not going to be doing anything differently. You have the highest per capita deaths and new cases, and your reaction is to do nothing. That's your reaction to it. Isn't that? And as you said, I think I heard you or somebody saying, all the guardians have died. And the guardrails have been broken down. So now it's a free-for-all, and the devil take the hindmost where this is concerned. In fact, what you see the government is doing is that they are preparing for more deaths. So we have oxygen being piped into another set of rooms at Hotel California. That's what they call it now, Hotel California. And you have some tent that the Arabs have given us that is going to be activated soon. So we are planning for more deaths instead of planning for reduction in the deaths. I was listening to a video last night and sometime last week, a video of how El Salvador has been able to reduce their deaths or keep their deaths to a low. And this morning I was listening to a video of how Inyo has been able to turn the tide, because they had a lot of cases and so on, how to be able to turn the tide. And all of those spoke to preventative measures. But we are talking right now, instead of preventive measures in addition to vaccine and so on, we are talking about laying out further infrastructure for more deaths. That is our approach. to the pandemic. You know, well, it just looks like it's going to be here for a longer time than in other places, so to speak. You know, so it just tells you a story. You know, other leaders are there at home trying to commandeer the post and trying to bring some sanity to the situation. Ours are out there. Ours are out there in a circus, meeting this person, meeting that person, and talking about Guyana's profile being raised. I mean, you met the president of Kosovo, you met the president of Austria, and you met the president of Ghana, and those three together has raised Guyana's profile as never before in the international community. My Lord, man, look. And indeed, something piqued my interest. And by the way, let those who don't know that pick in this case is spelled P-I-Q-U-E, not P-E-A-K. Something piqued my interest, right? When Ali met the Austrian president, I think out of that there was some talk of Austria helping us with a children's specialty hospital and development financing. Well, my brain shook off the cobwebs, and it dawned upon me that a similar hand was extended to the coalition government when we were in power. In fact, I believe sometime around 2018, when the Austrian ambassador came to Guyana to present his credentials, I met him, and we had some talk about Austria helping Guyana. And subsequent to that, in September, a team came from Austria, and they spoke specifically about helping us in the health sector, for which they seem to have a very good track record, so to speak. And I don't know how many people recall, but I around September the 12th, 2018, Guyana and Austria had signed a memorandum of understanding for assistance to be given by Austria. And subsequent to that, they sent a team that from their specialized agencies called VAMED, V-A-M-E-D. It's just an acronym. It's capital V, capital A, capital M, capital E, and capital D, VAMED. And we were talking at the time about building a state-of-the-art trauma center at Georgetown Public Hospital. Okay, so after the MOU was signed, talks began in earnest about the assistance that they can give. But I think two things would have scuttled whatever assistance or whatever progress that could have been made. First, of course, if you recall, it was the no confidence motion that came 3 months there afterwards, and therefore everything more or less came to a halt. But more important, when it came down to the nitty-gritty in the negotiations, the deal to us didn't appear as sweet as it was being made out to be. And so there would have to been protracted negotiations before we would have considered the deal to be in the best interest of Guyana. So I think one of the lessons to be learned, especially after also we had a similar approach by Virgin Atlantic, and after we got down to negotiation, the deal didn't appear as sweet as it had initially appeared to be. A word of caution to the government is that everybody will be out offering something to the country because of our oil status. But we have to be careful about looking gift horse in the mouth. I remember last year, if you remembered, a whole team of Americans descended on Guyana, and the private sector went gung-ho. The government were euphoric, that all these different American institutions had landed in Guyana, and the tide had changed in Guyana, and and so forth. And then I wrote a letter to Starbuck News that I think Starbuck News published it, in which I told them, beware of United States being gifts. I just played on the whole thing about beware of Greeks who are come bearing gifts. And since then, I don't remember any of those who came have become active in Guyana or have shown any interest further in Guyana. And I don't remember hearing the private sector being gung-ho about those very people who came here. Because when you go behind all the paraphernalia and the ribbon cutting and so on, it's the hardcore negotiations, which we don't have in a private sector that is familiar with. And here I just use a generic private sector. There may be one or two individuals who are, but the generic private sector, they're not familiar with hardcore negotiations about what takes place in the outer world there. They're cocooned. Most of them have been cocooned in Guyana and have been accustomed to bones being thrown at them in return for holding the guardrails for the PPP. Most of them. They are very good people in the private sector, no doubt about it. But you can count several of them. You can count if you had two hands on it. But a number of them, all they look for is what you call the handouts, because it's their reward for what they have put up, so to speak. So we don't see all those people who came last year, whole set of Americans descended on Guyana, and they were very gung-ho and so forth. Beware, I just will tell this government, beware of all those people who come offering, But I know my advice will not be taken. You know why? Because of that natural resource fund. You see, nothing is happening on the natural resource fund front. They wanted to pillory the coalition government about the natural resource fund. But we still were able to ensure that such a fund was in place in January of 2019. But 3 years afterwards, the fund cannot be activated. But guess what is happening? Because that fund, let us recall quickly, that fund is a transparent fund that allows the opposition, government, civil society, private sector, and everybody to have a stake in it, to have a say in it. It's a fund that has been set up where the parliament has all powers over it. The parliament has the all power in saying what is done with the resources in that fund. So they don't want to activate the fund, as we have said on a number of occasions on this program. But guess what you see is happening? Take the Gas to Shore project. A project that under the coalition would have cost roughly around 400 million US. That today is now being talked about 900 million US and counting. They are going to strike a deal, if they haven't already struck a deal with Exxon, that we will forego our 1 million barrels so that Exxon can be repaid the amount that they are putting to build the pipeline, the $900 million US pipeline. So instead of the 1 million barrels every whatever it is, I think on average we should supposed to get 1 million barrels in a year at an average of about let us say 60 million US a barrel. That will be roughly 360 million, 400 million US in 1 year. Instead of that money going into the natural resource fund, that money will now be siphoned off to pay Exxon for the pipeline that they will be building. So that is a way of negating Parliament in having a say in what the resources of the Natural Resource Fund will be doing in Guyana. You see what is going on?
Yes, I'm following you.
People didn't understand what is going on there. So the government will continue to borrow against Natural Resource Fund resources. So when the money is gone into the Natural Resource Fund, it will then be used to repay the debt that they borrow. So fait accompli. Parliament really have no say. Parliament really have no say. And when the law is when the law is not adhered to, in the sense that all the resources eligible to go into the fund must go into the fund, they will be siphoned off, as in the case of the gas to shore project. They will be siphoned off. They will not be sent to the Natural Resource Fund, but by way of agreement with the Exxon, the resources will be siphoned off to repay Exxon for the amounts that they would have advanced for the gas pipeline.
But I ask the question again: why is this kind of behavior not challenged in the courts?
You see, people say, I see sometimes your people come and they say, oh, well, Jordan come only here and he complaining and he's saying this and he's saying that, But I think sometimes there's an old saying that says, if you don't know 9, don't ask 10. And I think this is one of the situations you have here. I take it you have given that advice. This advice in various forms have been given. But what can you do? I have indicated on this program, for example, and to several people, that the law has been breached in respect of the half-year review. That it is in the law that 60 days after the half-year has finished, the half-year review must be presented to the National Assembly. I called the National Assembly, and early in September, and no half-year report had been presented to the National Assembly.
Who can approach the courts on these issues? Who can approach the court on these issues?
Well, those who are affected.
Any ordinary citizen? Or
That's
just...
why if a law is breached and affected, a citizen is affected. If I don't get a half-year review, for example, I'm an economist. I expect to see the half-year review because I have to do analysis, I have to do planning. Business people have to see the half-year review importantly. But the whole country is entitled to the half-year review. And as I said, they can't say that how Parliament is not in session. The law doesn't say anything about Parliament having to be in session. And as you can see, all this week, the Auditor General's office presented their report, because their report is due by September 30th of every year. And you have seen in picture that they have presented their report well within the deadline. And that report will be made available as soon as October 10th, when Parliament comes out of session.
And so there is no evidence that the half-year report has been prepared?
There's no evidence that I'm telling you, up to the time anyhow when I called Parliament, there was no evidence that the half-year report was in the precincts of the National Assembly.
How long does it take? I mean, you might not know, but I'm asking because I'm thinking. How long will it take to file a case on this matter?
I don't know. I don't know these legal things. And so forth. I don't know. All I know is that the law says 60 days after the half-year is finished, the half-year report must be presented to the National Assembly. And that will make it the 29th of August.
I wonder if Basil Williams is available to file this case. Basil, where am I?
But you see, had this been done under the coalition, my friend, we would have been pilloried not only by the opposition, but by our own people. We would have been pilloried by. And here you have a situation where the law has been broken. Not a single person, particularly in the business community, that should be waiting with bated breath to understand, to see the half-year report. They have said nothing. No not AmCham, not Private Sector Commission, not Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry, not the Guyana Manufacturing Association, none of them.
This man indisciplined bad.
Nobody in the thing. Nobody from the University of Guyana, no TG, no Transparency International. None of them have said this is a blatant and flagrant breach of the law. Nobody has said it. I am waiting with bated breath to see the half-year report. But there's no half-year report. And why is that so? My theory is that because the half-year might have been so bad, they want to delay its being in the public for as long as possible, so that it becomes meaningless. So in this country, only the good survives. The bad, you will keep it away. You will keep it away. You know, but you can't just only have one tumbleweed blowing in the wind. Nobody seems to care anymore, you know, and sometimes you tell yourself, well, maybe you shouldn't even bother to care. But then I look back and say, look, you got the Kidakis who don't care whether people are following him or on. He will just press on. You know, but it's really incredible that we could have reached in so short a time such levels of deterioration in this country, whether it's the behavior, you know, whether it's the actual physical economy or so on. It is there. Yesterday morning, I think it's Tekumo and the other guy on this Darren Abrams.
Yeah, Dion,
talking about the cost of living. You don't hear the business community and them coming out and saying that. He was talking that he had to give up on doing some small construction because the little piece of wood that he was trying to buy and so on was twice the cost. And that's a reality of every single thing. And you are talking about just over a year after the coalition demitted office. But you go back and see how they were pilloriing us. We didn't have those kinds of inflation. We didn't have those kinds of costs. We didn't have those kinds of complaints. We didn't have those kinds of complaints. And despite the fact that they've been throwing money left, right, and center, all $10 billion here, 14 billion there, 7 billion there, and so on. Talk to the average man in the street, you're going to hear he say money is circulating. When they used to say money is circulating under the coalition, it's because we had crippled the drug trade. So they have the drug trade in full flow, and all the other contrabands in full flow. And you have all these big cash transfers and so on. Talk to the ordinary man in the street, you can hear he said money is circulating. Go to the vendor in the markets, they will tell you money is circulating, people not buying. And that is 1 year after we had left office. 1 year after. So if people didn't want to accept, unfortunately, it may be too late, that what we were trying to do is build an economy in the context of 1.1 mid-dam, then they look and see today. I mean, many people are wringing their hands and saying, oh, well, it's going to happen again and so on. It's going to happen again. Because, you know, we are accustomed when a thing looking good, we don't worry anymore. But we don't believe that we must safeguard. Whenever it's going good, we must safeguard it. We mustn't flippantly say, oh, well, it's going good. We have to safeguard it. And this is unfortunate what is happening to this country. 1 year afterwards. Prices through the roof. Income stagnant. All you now have is a mendicant economy that is now waiting for handouts. And just before you tell me time is up, I want to raise the fact. I want to raise the fact that I'm always going to say, if something is being given, go for it. But listen carefully, as perhaps yourself has been saying. What they are doing in the context of giving out these little things here and there to teachers and so forth is dividing the working class population for them. And unfortunately, again, as I said, because we are in a pandemic and because it's this thing and so on, we are going to not recognize what is happening. But they did this early on with the same discipline services. They did it. They brought a bonus to the discipline services. And I said during 2019.
And that is why I suspect Africa is where
that bonus was targeted to discipline services for a specific purpose. Had nothing to do with working hard and so on. It was designed for a specific purpose. And that is why as soon as we exited, they were in a hurry to put it back in. They were in a hurry to put it back in. Now, they are now going to divide up the teachers. They're going to divide up the teachers. You're going to give them a bone here, you're going to give them a coupon here to go there, and so on. And the nurses, meanwhile, who have been the frontal people in the attack, they ain't getting a voucher for them to go here and there. They ain't getting a special revolving fund for them to build a house and so forth. And the public servants, they ain't getting a special voucher to go here, there, and everywhere. And they ain't getting a revolving fund to build house and so forth. And they ain't getting another thing to do health and so forth. Yet all of them are in the pandemic. And I think we have to call it as we see it. If you're going to give Peter, then you must give Paula and everybody else. Otherwise, all you're doing, which will be ultimately to the good of the government and to the benefit of the government, is dividing up the workers. Dividing them up. So you could easily pick them off. And when you pick them off as a group, you can pick them off singly. Singly. Because now you could go into the teachers group, and then you could begin to favor certain groups by region, or by ethnicity, or by whatever else criterion that you may use. So unions can't sit back and say, it's my fellow you. You see Gawu now win representation of Guyana Gold Board. They used to have the Guyana Workers Union there. Trust me, by the time this government term is finished, Gawu would control most of the places. And they will eventually go into the Public Service Commission, the Public Service Union. Because they can go into the public service now, into those areas that are hived off out from the traditional public service. And you're going to see more and more workers are going to say, look, we want GAU. Why?
Because GAU getting benefits.
That's correct. And GAU, we can get benefits.
But that is like, sorry, that would be like predatory pricing if I'm thinking right. When GAU controls all of them, then they leave them to the wolves.
That's right, because GW was representing Guyana Gold Board. And the workers went there and said, man, we don't want them. And so they sign up forms and say, we want GAU. And then they go to the Trade Union Regulation Board, they had a poll, and then GAU win. You might be amazed to see now the diversity of areas that GAU is in. From a sugar union, they're in all different parts now. And you see now, they're the only union that I know about who has now formed an oil and gas component, and they're moving into the oil and gas. So you're going to have a situation here where even the teachers' union, if they think that they're safe, even there, it's just a matter of time. They'll pick off the small pieces now, so forth, and then when the time is right, they can pick off. They can pick off the GTU, and they can pick off the public service union, because they themselves are moribund anyhow. And ultimately, the only union of any consequence in this country going to be GAU. Take it from me. Just look and see what is going on. Just look and see what is going on. Meanwhile, they are sitting thinking that they're comfortable. They're not.
Thank you for your wisdom, sir. I hope Mark Light is listening. Sister Coretta, y'all at risk.
Well, all I would tell you, Kidaki, is that I pray sometimes for, I'm an old timer, Yeah, I know my age tells me that I'm an old time, but sometimes in old timers, you have to appreciate what they do. I mean, when we had the old cricket team of Lloyd and Richards and so on, and they refused to go to South Africa, they played for pride and everything else. When you had the old timers with the unions and so forth, they marched for something they believed in. Right? And Critchlow, I believe, had a bicycle that he used to be running around with and so on. They walked for miles, and so forth. These present day people who call themselves unionists and so forth, they never took a leap out of those people book and understanding what struggle was about. They don't think. That is why you cannot get an 8-day strike and all these kinds of things these days. They may think, well, technology and all these things going on and so on, but you cannot get those because the belief, the thing in the chest and so forth.
The brown paper bag matters.
Right? They're not there. You know, nobody could Skippy or whatever he used to be called, nobody could buy him off and so forth. But look what you have today. Look what you have today.
We want to manage duty-free concession and give scholarships as unionists.
You know, I mean, it's you know, sometimes, you know, when you do those things, you don't understand even how you compromise yourself. Because ultimately, you not listen. Ultimately, you still not responsible for it. Duty free is in the purview of the executive, and it's not something that they can delegate. They didn't delegate the powers to grant duty-free concession. What they merely did is bring the union in a supportive advisory position.
Make the recommendations.
And unfortunately, what happened is that is enshrined in an agreement. Now the lawyers need to say whether the agreement is justiciable or whatever. But the reality at the end of the day is that the executive are the ones who determine who gets a duty-free concession, not the union. But as I'm saying, since they have an agreement, then the lawyers have to determine whether whatever they have there in the agreement and so on is justiciable and so forth. But I mean, you have to. I mean, making you a part of the whole thing about who gets a duty free and so on. That you don't understand. That also helps to compromise your position as an independent union. It helps to compromise your position as an independent union. Agree to the principles and let the government implement. It is in their executive. Let them do it. Stay clear of anything that will compromise your ability to bargain effectively. I don't see why, for example, a union have to determine, if the union sits down with the government and says, look, for these concessions, here are the set of criteria we believe should put in place. And you sit down, you iron those out. But once those are ironed out, it's the government to follow resolutely. It's not for the teachers not no union to sit down and say, well, look, X place and Y. Because you're compromising yourself in doing that. Stay clear of anything that you will be compromised that will affect your bargaining for your unit. And that is what they have to do. And that also includes taking money from the government. Taking money from the government in the guise of scholarships for union executives and duty-free concessions to the union executives, and and putting union executives on boards other than anything to do with the education sector and so on. Those are sweeteners that they're buying you, and it compromises your ability. It compromises your ability to bargain effectively for your bargaining unit. And so they have to go back to drawing. Not only teachers, all the other unions got to go back to the drawing board. Got to go back. They get enough. They have enough union dues, and if they were able, like other unions internationally, to turn those union dues into investments that will help to grow the income of the union and help them to help their bargaining unit members. That is what they have to do. That is what they have to do, and that is what they don't do. So they have to depend on government to give them a position to go on some conference, to give them some money to help out with something and so on, and they all the time compromising themselves. So when push comes to shove, the minister can say, we pulling back this. And so you have to put your tail between your leg and call off the strike and do this and do that because you don't want to offend. You don't want to offend. And that is what all of them have been caught in a trap. They can't come out. You remember the tune? Play it Saturday if you remember it. I'm caught in a trap. You remember the tune?
I can check it. It sounds familiar.
Good accuse, was good fun, man.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Have a good day.
It's now 8:26. You're tuned to the Buxtonian Morning Time. The lines are open up, and so you can make your call. Listen to your president while you make your call. I tell you all, if this software want to play this
African
thing.
enslavement. In today's commemoration, Guyana is committed to gaining international reparations for the crime of African enslavement. Reparative justice must not only include a full and unconditional apology from those responsible and or who benefited from the transatlantic trade in captive Africans and their
Understand the new jingle is Ali is a Dunstog and we gonna teach he. Well, Laroy, thank you to the lyricist. Call in live, good morning.
Yeah, good morning to that. Good morning to your viewers. Mr. Jordan always comes with a lot of information. Sometimes I think it's too much to digest all at once. But anyway, we appreciate that.
Thanks to the power of replay.
I think he should also consider maintaining some kind of a website that he could consolidate all of that wealth of information and let us, the public, be able to follow suit, because the thing is, with his level of knowledge and the duration of it, or I should say the period of his knowledge covered, he is able to connect the dots easily, while for us reading a single article, etc., cannot really connect those dots. That's why I really appreciate listening to him. But one thing that I want to say, though, is that in regards to GAU, I think he's giving a little too much credit to GAU in terms of their effectiveness as a union. GAU is not the case that GAU is a powerful and a union that is capable of handling really challenging negotiations, etc., with the government. It is that the government is part of GAU. That's the only reason GAU is so effective in terms, seemingly effective in what they do. Because they're basically receiving handouts from the government. They already have a clear path that they could just roam along and be able to pick up things along the way. That is different in terms of the other unions who need to fight for what they are basically entitled to in some cases, or in terms of what they need to negotiate for. So that's just one point. And the next thing is, in regards to the president and his funding that he had at the, I think it was yesterday. It shows right here in Guyana as well, where we see where he's handling the sugarcane workers, and I mean no disrespect to them, but you could see he's handling the sugarcane workers here locally as higher priority over our teachers, our nurses, our doctors, etc. So you could see where their priority lies. And as I explained in a previous program in regards to, and I would honestly, I would really appreciate it if there's an open, one of our Indian brothers and sisters who could actually come out and discuss real topics that are affecting the Indian community. Because the perception that these people, or the treatment that they're bringing out towards the Africans, this is not happening just in the governmental bodies. If it's coming from within, for example, family teachings, etc., those things should be brought to the public. Because one of the things I was thinking about is, if they do disagree within a household, I think they treat their household different from, I would say, for example, an African household or many other ethnicity, where you could disagree, but you're still respected in the family, you're still treated as a normal individual, as a family member. But for certain instances, it is not so on the inside. But I would love for somebody of their ethnicity to discuss that openly as a topic to see if it's something worth looking into, where the government could help to facilitate open discussion for family members who are unable to express themselves within a family, and if they do, they're threatened on, treated like an outcast. That would help to heal society in certain areas where children would not be coming up hating another race just because of what their foreparents taught them, etc. It should not be. So when you see again, anyway, back to him prioritizing the sugarcane workers over the nurses and doctors, you could tell where we're heading. And as I mentioned before, their priority mostly is on the line of finances, just financial wealth. Nothing in regards to principles, etc. Once they're rich, that's okay. It doesn't matter how they get it. And I meet a lot of people who is in the case of the president, where they sometimes pay their way to receive these certificates and put them to represent their knowledge and their wisdom. You see, they undermine themselves, unknowingly it seems that if you buy a certificate, it's okay for you to hold a position, but when you come to representing that knowledge that you should have gained, you cannot. And he's a typical example of that, and it's a shame that it's the president he's speaking about. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the caller, just a point of clarification from what I'm thinking. I think the caller must have misunderstood Mr. Jordan in terms of the capability of GAU. I don't think he's saying that GAU is capable of really negotiating and getting stuff under normal circumstances. But he's saying that given the political quote-unquote clout of GAU by virtue of its connection to the PPP, it has been able to get stuff. Imagine which union or how often do you find a union, the workers strike for 24 hours and they get all that they demand? Right? It is simply because the representatives of GAU are also sitting as part of the representative government. That is the only reason, and that is why I say many of these strikes coming from Gaisuko are pre-organized, pre-planned. We want to get them boys that top up so y'all come out and strike. We're gonna sign off on it after your first 12 hours. Right? And that is what people have to understand. I hope the teachers and so on do understand what I was talking about when I said it's like onto predatory pricing. Because what GAU will do and what the government is doing right now is basically encouraging GAU to go after those trouble spots. Right? To become their representatives. And so when you become the representatives of the trouble spots, you're already in bed with the government. And so you will be able to tame them when they decide that they want to get wayward. Because you are the representative union. Just like Yard is doing with the public servants, quite frankly. So y'all be careful of that. It's not every... y'all got to be careful of the Trojan horses. That's all I can say. Call in live, good morning.
Good morning to everybody. About the thing of the UN, I pray that we do not get this money. Why? For the reason why. Look what the PPP did with the COVID grant. They denied a lot of black people that money. And should the UN give out that money, we the black people who were slaves, who came here in the belly of the ships, while they came as indentured laborers and were being paid, even given a salary to return back to the slums from whence they came, they will have to get that money. So God help us. Don't let the UN give the money. Now, when it comes to them going in front, when you said now they plan to go to Ghana, why is Barrett trying to go to Ghana? Barrett now is trying to show the world that he loves black people that much. You love black people. You are responsible for over 1,400 black people lives in your first tenure. Now look within the couple mornings in. Look this by death in Dartmouth, and you go out on the in the public and trying to tell them you love black people. The world know that the PPP is a racist organization, and all what they intend to do is kill as many black people, take all the wealth for the black people, and fill their own pockets. That is a well-known thing, and I pray that Mr. Barr could get up his organization. We prefer our money coming through the organization with Mr. Berger, but not through the PPP. Now, one other thing. Yesterday, an aged woman who has in her body the 2 drops of the potent poisoning in her body. She is now sick. I don't want to say it's spin-off from the drugs. She went to West Demerara Regional Hospital to see a doctor to report her problems. When she got there, she presented this book, and a guard, I don't know since when guards get this big position, they're locking out learned people, nurses out of the hospital, doctors out of the hospital, teachers out of the school. This guard literally chased this woman away from West Demerara Regional Hospital. That was between the hours of 6:30 to 8 o'clock yesterday. The guard also had many patients who went to the hospital. Some of them were in wheelchairs. All those people, this guard at West Dem Emergency Unit had them standing out in the hot morning sun because he was not allowing them to enter the hospital. I would like somebody to tell these guards their positions. Many of these guards see the name big, like Chedi International, Timeri International Airport, and they know it concerns them. They're working with these slave masters as the leader of the guard service, and they're so dunce, they can't even read the pay slip to see that they've taken out money from the salary for NIS, and none is being paid into the system. I think things like that guards must look after, not chasing people out from schools, chasing people out from buildings, and chasing people away from education and the hospital. And I know you gonna vex Kadaki, but the one was dead behind the building, many more must dead behind the building like she. That is my comment this morning. Bye-bye.
Y'all help me to help Rondo. She knows I will be angry, but she still does it. The girl presumptuous. Come on, listen, in all our disagreements, I usually say we can't lose our humanity. Don't be like the PPP. Do not be like the PPP. You can't lose your humanity in your disagreements. Right? You can make your points without being callous, without being unsympathetic to other people's causes. Had that been your family member, would you like someone to say Morgan dead, Moshe dead like she? I certainly don't disagree with you, Rhonda. There's no doubt you bring a lot of wisdom to this program. You share a lot of information, but watch it. Okay? Watch it. Don't give up your humanity in all that you do. Where am I? Call it live, good morning.
Mr. Kadaki, good morning.
Good morning, caller.
Hello? Yes, good morning, everyone in diaspora. Good morning, all Guyanese. On the issue of reparations, now, we don't want nobody trying to hijack reparations. Reparations is not an issue for government to handle. I repeat, reparations is not an issue for government to handle. So I don't know since when the Guyana government involved in reparations business. That is wrong bound. So for Vincent Alexander, who is heading up Prodigy, and for ACDA, please, reparations should not be in the hands of government. Now, Mr. Vincent Alexander, you handling Prodigy, in that context of African Year of the Decade, please straighten that issue. Get the train back on the track. Now, reparations is an issue as old as the Bible itself. There are 102 scriptures in the Bible that speaks about reparation. When Christ gave his life for the Christians to know, when Christ gave his life as an offer, a sacrificial offer, that was an atonement See, reparation deals with the principle of atoning for the wrongs that were done, for the atrocities that were done or inflicted. This, to atone, means to repair the damage. So reparations is repairing the damage. And you could repair the damage with education, with medication, with financial assistance, etc. Okay? Now, the precedent that was set in the International Court at The Hague, not at The Hague, but the Nuremberg trials, for atrocities done by Hitler in World War II to the Jews. The Jews were paid billions of dollars through the Nuremberg trials. That was reparations. That was the German government of Hitler made to atone. As the Bible speaks of the principle of atonement, reparations is saying you did wrong, you acknowledge your wrong, now you must atone for your wrong. And you must reconcile. Reconciliation, atonement and reconciliation. If you nasty my shirt, then you must not only apologize for nasty my shirt, but you must take efforts to repair the damage. Give me some money so I could buy some soap for wash the shirt. If you crash my car, then you must atone. You must give reparations to fix my car. You mustn't only say sorry. So when the British and the Dutch and the Portuguese telling us sorry for slavery, that's good. But that is not how you reconcile. So atonement and reparations is the principle of reconciliation, which is also in the scriptures. So reparations is as old as biblical. God atoned and God gave reparations by giving his only begotten son, that whosoever believe in him, okay, so he sacrificed his life as Calvary. I want Christians to understand that atonement is part of their religiosity as well. So we must understand how religion speaks about atonement and reparations in the church and then in the community. The Jews, the Japanese, the United States government gave the survivors of the Holocaust help of reparations, what's called the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan for France and Poland, and for the Jews, the Japanese got reparations from the United States government. So we're showing instances. Now what we're saying, reparations for Guyana would have to come from the Dutch government for enslaving coffee in our ancestors. It would have to come from the British government. It would have to come from people like Barclays Bank and a lot of other banks. I don't have too much time to talk about that. I want to talk about another issue. So reparations is not a government issue. So what Irfan Ali doing is skullduggery. Back away from them. Good. Now, the issue of taking it to the court, this issue of Minister Jordan mentioned this half-year report and how the monies are being redirected or recharacterized, as we say in accounting. It's a recharacterization of the intent of the financial fund for the oil profits. So the intent of the fund is being recharacterized. Right? A 6 has been turned to a 9. It is not being used as intended. So we must challenge that in the court, as Kadaki raised. So Kadaki, you raised a very good point. I'm not going to waste too much time on that. People can form an NGO, get a lawyer, work with overseas teams online, and challenge that issue in the courts. We don't have to wait on nobody else. We, the citizens, retain that right to challenge anything that has to do with us and our profits, okay? Because the fund was by Congress said to be made a fund for the people of Guyana. So the people have an interest and we must take them to court and sue it, okay? That should be our answer right there. Now, on the issue of vaccines, Vaccines, as being recommended by the government of Guyana and by Pfizer, is being used in a way that if you take it as prescribed, could cause your death. Hear what I'm saying? Vaccines recommended by your doctor, oftentimes when used, ends up in fatality. So we have a recommended vaccine that doesn't match. Medical malpractice by utilizing a doctor's prescription, and it is known to his own. So this is knowingly facilitating marriages. So this is a matter for hand-in-hand insurance and insurance, because how does this affect insurance policies? Taking the vaccine becomes a risk, a risk. Vanessa, gangrene of foot, and go in the intensive care unit. So risk. Many of the people who are taking the vaccine.
Caller, your
risk. Now I want to.
Your quality is deteriorating, sir. Your quality is deteriorating.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, man. Yeah. So taking the vaccine is putting people at a risk. So we need to be able to challenge that risk of malpractice in the courts. Doctors should not be facilitating something which knowingly cause fatality when patients take it. So that's the issue that could be challenged. The vaccines pose a risk for persons who are not vaccinated. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Second pin, nobody's to call me right now, please. I want to say this with no disrespect meant. Each and every one, regardless of how dull you think you are. What did I say? Just said not to call. Mark Fraser, if you have an interest in shortened calls that make no sense, then you gotta check with the critic. Right? I moderate this program, I host this program, and my sole intent is to bring information to people that they can benefit from. And so if you believe a caller is going on too long, sign out. Turn him off until he comes off. Don't tell me to muzzle the caller. The caller has a lot of information to share. You should be happy that information is being shared. I don't understand. Sometimes I don't understand us. But let me get back to what I was saying. The one thing I ask for is for us to respect each other. If you infringe as I consider it, I will rebuke you. I will tell you that I think you are infringing. I think it is the adult thing for us to respect each other as viewers, as listeners, as producers, as hosts. Let us respect each other. And so, on the lane, I'm calling you this morning. I don't understand why it is you have to go on the chat and abuse people and call them dunces and grasses. I don't understand it. Likewise, I don't understand why people have to refer to Rwanda as crazy. It is callous. It is inhumane for any caller to rejoice over the death of any individual. The death of every man diminishes me. Not even the criminal minded, I don't rejoice when they're dead. Because you, as human beings, ask yourselves if there could have been a better way. You know what I say about that 65-year-old who has died on the work site? First, I say I don't know who is going to tell me at 65 that I have to take injections to keep a job. Because at 67, I don't want to be working for a single soul. At 60, I should be enjoying retirement, even at 50. And so at 60, I don't want to be working for nobody. Much less if people tell me take injection at 65. Do we abuse the family of that victim because she is a victim? Or do we spit on her grave because at 65 she had to be working? No, because the system, it is the system which causes poverty to be pervasive. And so when people should be enjoying their retirement years, they still got to be working. Otherwise they can't eat. I don't blame a soul for taking the vaccine because they believe that taking the vaccine is going to help them to keep their jobs, which will ensure that they eat. I can't blame you for that because I can provide for you. But I can say that I have my belief on the vaccines. And based on my belief, this is the position I've taken. I don't have to abuse you because you have taken a position. And so I'm disappointed with you, my sister. Very disappointed. Y'all, for the last year or so, people have been begging me, block this body, block that body, because they have been abusive to me. I ain't blocked nobody. Up until now, I ain't blocked nobody. I think, well, not true. I asked that 2 persons be blocked, 2 or 3 persons be blocked in recent time. Right? People have been abusive to me. I don't generally respond to them. When I respond in kicks, as we like to say, in jest. If we aim to lead, if we aim to educate, we gotta be better. We can't be contributing to the darkness that we're cursing. Y'all are big people. I don't have to tell you apologize to each other and hug and kiss and move on. But we gotta do better. I got a prerogative of blocking people. If you offend me, I can block you. Whether you bring positive information or not. Don't let us do it to each other. Don't, please. Caller Live, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you, caller.
Hello?
Good morning,
Yes.
caller.
Thank you for listening to me. I got a word or two to say, right? This talk that with President went and talk. Yesterday morning, had a prayer, and it was a prayer, I believe, where you get, make it get tongue twist, because it's black people he going and talk about, and he hate black people so much, because the meeting where he keep, here he had a closed door gathering a businessman, and just after the meeting finished, the closed door, them by dead. So you see how the man tongue been tying up, it's the choke out, the word out, he couldn't bring it out. He couldn't bring it out, so this is my contribution. I think it's God work there. It's God hand for the black people he talking about. At the end, he know he don't care a heck. So it's the happen, and then the lady, the prayer that woman gave that morning, God help we, Father, that it work. Thank you
very
caller. Much to listening to me, and that is my contribution.
Thank you very much. The lines remain open. 6225933 is the number to call. Six 225-933. With 6 minutes to the 9 o'clock hour, the lines remain open, and you can call and let's talk the thing. Remember who your Don's president is. We must not let them rest. They must always be reminded that even in their claims of superiority, they are weak souls. What happened me? Call it live, good morning.
Good morning, Kadaki. Kadaki, the program this morning was very interesting. But you and Mr. Jordan had this conversation a little while back talking about the opposition on certain things that they're not responding to, or like going to courts and take certain things to the court. I don't know, because these people just sitting back and not making no effort, or they just don't want to be bothered, because this is what they say, leave them in there, they're going to be in there for 5 years and everything going to be good. No, it's not. They're wrecking that place up. They're wrecking it up. I don't understand how they could sit back and have people perform like that. Today they're supposed to be having a rally down in by the UN. As I say, I'm not going nowhere. I'm staying in my bed. I'm in my bed, please. Because all you go there and they went back home. What do they do? I didn't see no action. You don't see nobody that was in New York City coming. The only Ganesh talking. The rest of them, you're hearing their voice. And I heard Simona Bruns talk the other day. I didn't really pay attention to what she was saying because I think something was happening. But they're not showing no action. They're just sitting down. All of them just like putting their hands between their legs and not just accepting. You cannot accept stuff like that. And he went there and today he's going to talk. He should have maybe it's the Prime Minister speak. Instead of he talking, what is he going to represent us? What he's trying to get money for us? What money they're going to get? When they get it, they keep it for themselves. They're not giving it to us. Kadaki, continue doing what you're doing. It's very interesting. You're bringing out pointers for all of us. And sometimes we just have to sit back, relax, and take it easy and don't get upset and don't talk ill things about each other. We just got to work on it. Have a good day, Kadaki.
Thank you for calling. One of the things I wanted to say, we have to stop defeating ourselves because we want to defeat others. With the oil, I had a frequent caller who would constantly say, I want the oil to dry up. Let the oil dry up. Caller, hold the line, please. Caller, hold the line, please. Are you hearing me?
Yes,
Good.
I'm hearing you.
All right, kindly hold the line. I want the oil to dry up. It can bring peace in Guyana. Ronnie is saying she prays that we don't get reparation money. Right? I disagree with both those positions. What we have to start saying is that we have to raise hell for what is rightfully ours. That is what we have to see. We have to start putting systems in place to fight the government tooth and nail for reparations money. The UN declared the decade of people of African descent, you know how long? Granger coming at the tail end of it. It was the PPP in government since this decade was declared, you know. But the PPP did not put systems in place for black people to benefit from that money. Thanks to Granger, Ipalaji was formed. That's how the money was channeled to Ipalaji. We now have Ipalaji. There's ACDA. There's SAGE. There are lots of black organizations in this country. They must sit together and put together a comprehensive plan as how they will block up this damn country if reparations money come. And whichever the government doesn't use it for the benefit of black people. It's as simple as that. Right? I already got my worries, my quarrels. Ali and an entire delegation, quite frankly, of Indian people, people who have no interest in black people, at heart are representing issues of this nature. And the black organizations are not raising hell about it. Instead of us raise hell about who represents us on these things, and us getting our rightful due, we're praying that it doesn't materialize. So in other words, we want to remain right where we are. Not me. The PPP got a scorch yard policy. If they can't get it, they buck it up. It's time black people get that attitude. And I'm very serious. I ain't praying for nothing disappear, and I ain't praying for nothing don't come true. I'm praying for all that is due to black people to be realized. But I'm praying also for black people to get up and stand up and defend what is rightfully theirs. You want to put it in bold terms? If blood must run in the street, blood must run in the street. The ancestors' blood ran in the fields and in the streets because they rebelled. So if you got to do this in modern Ghana or this modern world, as they call it, modernity seems to be a sin. Just prepare to do it so that your next generation can benefit like our ancestors did for us to benefit. Call it live. Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Kadaki. Something I will recommend you should do. If you can get a 7th grade year-old child to pronounce it every morning on your show, so at least he can hear in it every time, because it's so shameful, to Guyanese across the diaspora that hearing our president can't even pronounce a word, and it's so shameful. So, my advice to you, I'm telling you, just get a 7th grade year-old child, let her words that he can't pronounce, and just play it every morning on your show. Just play it every morning. That's all I would like to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, caller. The lines remain open. 6225933 is the number to call. We're 2 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour. I'll take another 2 calls or so, and then I have to go. While I wait those 2, y'all listen to your Don's president.
Enslavement must go beyond apology. In this regard, Ghana will continue to support the efforts being made within the Caribbean community to press for the convening of an international summit to demand reparative justice for the victims of the transatlantic slave trade.
Call you live. Good morning.
Good morning, my brother. How are you this morning?
Alive and grateful.
I must say I do appreciate this program in which you're having, and we're enlightening a lot of people concerning what is actually happening around there. But what is most amazing, a lot of us may not be knowledgeable of what is being transpired today. Now, they have a lot of persons who are well learned, who have knowledge. They're lawyers. There's so many persons who are so learned. I would like to know, why is it that they're just dormant? They're just sitting there doing nothing. They're doing nothing. When these things come up, where are these people? What are they doing? Everybody just talk without any action. What is actually happening to us people? We get soft. We are so soft that we cannot stand upright to defend our cause. What is happening to us? I am saying, and I would say and always say, the time has come for people to stand. Long ago they used to stand for what they believe in. What happened now? Causing them to be so dominant. Come on. You are there trying to do a good job to bring things to our attention so that we could understand what is happening to us in this country. What happened to the well-learned men and women? Why are they not out there trying to mobilize and enlighten the people of what is actually happening? the black people don't have the access to the media as we should have had? Why not only yours, and they have a few, they have bench crop and others who are doing their job? What's wrong? What is wrong? Fight for something. Fight for something. You're not fighting for nothing. Your black brother dead, everybody throw them the tool. What are you going to do? Oh God, man, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? This is ignorance. And a lot of people want to come out, but they're not coming out because of the attitude of many. You understand? Look, the other day they were called for a total shutdown. Georgetown did not. Linden did. How many other places do stand to what they believe in? Georgetown only, I got to work, I got to get money. Hell no. When you get the money, what are you doing with it? And you're still in poverty. You're still under pressure. You still is not doing the things you expect to do with your brother, man, to at least come out of this ignorance. My brother, look, you continue to do it, but I'm so fed up. I listen to you all the time. I'm fed up. Fed up talking. Have a blessed morning.
You too, sir. It's 9:06. Time to go. You have the opportunity for one last call. Call A Live, good morning.
Morning, Kadaki. I agree with what you said in reference to bringing the oil up, and we should fight for every cent of reparation. We cannot allow to leave it in the ground, and it just goes to show how the Indian PPP party can put a pig up for president, got him selected, and they're okay with that because that's how the Indians roll. They don't care how uneducated Ali is. They just see it as an Indian man running things. And black people can't see that. The Afro-Guyanese can't see that. Along with the Afro-Guyanese that voted for him. And until Afro-Guyanese adopt a principle of how the hell you got to be on top, the same way you've got to treat the others to get there. These folks have marginalized you, and you want to pray to get back on top. Freedom isn't free. You gotta take your goddamn freedom. And black people just sit down, as the previous caller said, what we gonna do, what we gonna do? Hell, get the hell up. Eat licks. To get the hell up to do something for themselves. So basically, they're thinking, well, I mean, they don't have children, and the children is not going to benefit from their work. Let the children do the work because, hell, I had to do what I need to do to get mine. And that's the mentality we have. So until we're able to understand how Indians are just treating us just like the white man did, and all we want to do is to pray that we're going to, that good God is going to come down from the sky and help us. Ridiculous. And that's why we're in the situation we're in. We keep begging. You can't beg these people. You got to take it. Take the fight to them. Shut the country down. How many months we've been calling for the country to be shut down? And no real sustained action. One day of protection in Dartmouth, and that was it. They were able to be cajoled to say, yeah, we're going to do this and we do. How hell long does it take to conduct the investigation for who the hell send those SWAT team to kill that guy? It don't take that long. They're looking to run the clock out and cook a story up. And then we are going to buy it. And our leaders are simply are not informing us as far as the court cases, the petition, and all of that. So we've got to now wait while they run the clock out, and we just saying, boy, we can't do nothing, man. You know, it's really tiring and sickening in our sad state of affair in Guyana that you have an idiot president, and you wouldn't hear none of the Indians say anything bad about him, because that's how it is for them. They really don't care as long as the Indian man is ruling over black people, and that's it. That's all I got to say, man. Just
Thank you, caller. Voice notes time.
Good morning, Mr. Amsterdam. I want to thank you for, while I'm listening to your program every morning, it's like I'm in a university, I'm in a college. There's so much of information that has been brought forth that I'm learning, that I'm teaching myself. And we understand that not everybody has internet and can listen to the program to get the information, right? But that does not say that you cannot educate yourself about the surroundings of what's going on around you. And what we don't have right now is proper leadership. We don't have the Walter Rodney, we don't have a Burnham, we don't have Coffee and these guys, right? But we have someone like Mr. Kadaki. I think you are a driving force. Mr. Aubrey Norton. But Granger and his fellow buddy, they are a waste of time. And we don't need them. We need proper leaders like yourself to galvanize, and we need to stop praying. Nothing is wrong with praying, right? But when you pray, you have to have action also. Words without works can't sustain. So we need to galvanize the troops and fight against all of these atrocities, iniquities, and all of these dirtiness going on against us.
Morning, my brother, how you doing? You know, when somebody will call you, say, hey, Burnham, I'll call you Chetty or these people, you're proud. Anybody call you finally, you're supposed to be so upset, and that's so disrespectful for somebody to call you finally. So when people call you finally, you're supposed to get in fights with people for disrespecting you, you understand? There's a new this word out right now. Finally. Don't stop.
Ali is a Dunstug and we gon' teach he. That's a new chant. Ali is a Dunstug and we gon' teach he. Ali is a Dunstug and we gon' teach he. Hey, we got some good musicians in this country. It is 50 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour. I want to thank you for tuning in. And I want to leave you with this one. It's called Orta Run Red. Y'all know the one? Orta Run Red. Richie Spice says so. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Remember to sanitize frequently. Wear your mask. Stay off the road. That's the best thing you can do. Keep 3 to 6 feet apart from each other if you are in a public space. Wear your mask if you're in a public space. Sanitize frequently. Wash your hands with soap and running water. And be careful. Boost your immune system. Boost your immune system. I'm told that zinc and vitamin D are good contributors to boosting your immune system. Okay? Best of luck. Stay safe. We need to live to enjoy all that we are entitled to.
Hey, what's the places you walk in, mind the way you talk, watch out for the vampire who will sneak up in the dark, watch out for the big time thief who claim say that them smart. By bringing the crack and the gun to come mash up the youth them heart. Better and red, when you all a look down on that tea bread, I hear an ex you dead. Sneaking under man feet. A revelation time, check the signs of the time. Then a belief. And you study up the Lego out the street, and you know say things now go sweet. And a hustle and a shuffle hungry belly, they a yard can't find food to eat. Better and red, where they all a look down on that tea bread. And you're an ex you dead. Whoa. Since you tell the man them put down the gun, I can turn your back and let the life gone down. These are the time we should have some fun. Give thanks to Jack as the man soon come. Since you tell the man them let the politics, I can turn your back and let the man get tricked. Mama, red around red, when you all a look down on that TV, and you're next you dead. Whoa. Watch the places you walk and mind the way you talk, Watch out for the vampire